That critical witness, Danny Jo Carter, will come back onto the stand today. Again, we're keeping a close feed on the courtroom. I believe we have a feed. We're just waiting for an audio into the courtroom. As soon as trial begins, we'll make sure to go to it. That is Tex McIver, a live feed of the man right there, the man everyone's talking about, the defendant in this case. But let's talk a little bit more about what happened yesterday with Danny Jo Carter. Joining me right now is Ronn Blitzer, senior legal editor of our very own Law&Crime.com. Ron, it's great to see you.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Great to see you. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on right now as we watch the preview in the courtroom. Danny Jo Carter testified. What should people take away from her testimony?
Not as much as I would have hoped. She was the only eyewitness to the shooting here, but as we heard from her testimony, she didn't see what happened. She didn't even realize that a weapon had been fired immediately. She heard a bang, didn't know what it was. It wasn't until she heard Tex McIver say, Tex, what happened? And he said, the gun went off. And then she said, you shot me, that Danny Jo Carter really understood what had gone on. Before Diane had said that she had been shot, Carter didn't even realize that had happened. She thought that the gun had gone off down into the floor of the car. She was worried about there being a hole in the car because that's where the gun was pointed. So even though she was there at the time, she didn't really understand what had happened right away. Okay, but yes, did we get any glimpse into this being a murder? I mean, she didn't say, I saw Tex outstretch his hand, shoot Diane in the back, or say something that would contradict what the narrative is put forward by the defense. I haven't heard that so far. No, so if you are the defense, you're happy about this because if testimony isn't proving one thing or the other, that's good for the defense because the defense doesn't have to prove anything. Okay, but even if you take her story from what you've heard so far, I think the thing that really didn't help Tex McIver there is there was no bump in the road. This seemed to happen at a stop sign or a stoplight or a traffic light. And if that's the case and he really was sleeping, what woke him up? But really, how does a gun just discharge? Now, we know from the beginning part of opening statements that we don't know what mode this gun was set on. There's dual action and single action. Dual action requires 15 pounds of pressure, while single action, I believe, requires 2 pounds. If it was on single, it would make it more sense why the gun might go off. But again, I'm still not clear how this all happened. Yeah, we didn't really get that much more insight from here. It is unclear exactly what set the gun off. He claimed that there was a bump in the road. Now it sounds like that wasn't the case. Maybe he was sleeping. Maybe he awoke with a start because he heard something. He dozed off. Something happened and his finger went off. It's hard to say for sure. Yeah. All right, Ron, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to go right back into the Tex McIver courtroom. Maybe we'll have time to show you a little bit of Danny Jo's testimony from yesterday. You don't want to miss anything. This has been an explosive case and will remain to be one again today. We'll be right back. Hey everybody, I'm Jesse Weber. Welcome back to Law and Crime. Not much time for introductions right now because we are going live into that Atlanta courtroom back in day 6 of the Claude Tex McIver case. Let's listen in.
I knew nothing.
Can you tell the jurors in September of 2016, based on what you observed with respect to the defendant, did you see any signs of any financial distress?
No.
Did you notice any change in his level of lifestyle in September of 2016?
No.
Now, before this incident, can you tell the jurors, how would you best describe your feelings towards the defendant before the shooting?
Quite fond of him. He was never anything but nice to me.
Okay, and you have to keep your voice up. You don't have your mic on, do you?
No.
Okay, so try to lean into the microphone and make sure you speak loud, okay?
He was always kind.
He was always kind to you?
Yes.
And I thought you said earlier you were quite fond of him.
Yes.
And can you tell the jurors before the shooting, how had you seen him treat Diane?
Very kind and like a Southern gentleman.
Now, after you left the hospital with your husband and the defendant on Monday morning, September the 26th, why did you go back to the condominium with the defendant?
He had asked me to help him to inform people and friends about Diane's death.
And that was okay with you?
Yes.
Now, let me ask you this. Were you afraid of him in any way?
No, I was not.
Now, I want to ask you about the statement that you told us about that occurred at the hospital.
Okay.
Where the defendant said to you to indicate that you were just a family friend. You remember that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jurors, when he told you that he wanted you to make the statement to law enforcement because he was looking out for you, did you believe that?
Let me object to that, please.
What's the relevance of whether she believed it?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll ask a different question.
Generally, witnesses don't comment on the believability of other things. So
I understand.
Sounds like you'll ask a different question.
I will.
Great.
When he said that to you, why didn't you do it?
I didn't understand why I needed to make up a story when there wasn't anything. There was no reason to make up another story besides that I'd driven them to the emergency room.
Besides what?
That I'd driven them to the emergency room.
All right, let's talk a little bit about what's happening today. Again, I'm here with Ronn Blitzer. Ron, what do you think about the style from the DA here about questioning Danny Jo right now?
Well, it's very methodical, I'll put it that way. Another way would be slow. He's really taken his time here. It's not a style I'm personally a fan of. He is speaking very slowly.
Takes his time in between questions.
Questions. And if I'm on the jury, I'm probably drifting off at some point in the middle of this.
The bigger question is, what are we learning that we haven't learned so far from yesterday? What are we learning today? We're getting a little bit more into now the statement that Tex made to Danny Jo, trying to make it look like a cover-up. But I'm not seeing it. And again, I'm not seeing how this is a cover-up of a murder as opposed to maybe a cover-up of a dumb move, an accident, a guy who shouldn't have been handling a car and a gun in a moving car while he's intoxicated. How is this a cover-up of a murder?
I don't see it either. Yeah, we heard, and like you mentioned, we're not getting a lot of new information yet. We heard yesterday about how she said that Tex told her to lie to police if they asked her about it, to say, oh, But
it should be noted, Tex said to her, I don't want you to lie. He did say that at one point.
Well, yeah, when she called him out on it, he's like, oh, no, I'm not asking you to lie. So that doesn't look good.
Right.
But I'm with you. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's trying to cover up a murder. This guy's an attorney. Right. He's probably worried about what's going to happen.
That's a good point. He is an attorney. He is an attorney. He tried to cover it up. Well, let's listen a little bit more about the statement from Danny Jo when we'll be back with Ron in a minute.
And can you tell the jurors, shortly thereafter, did you have the opportunity to actually come to the DA's office for a sit-down interview?
Yes.
Okay. And when you came to the office, who came with you?
I came by myself sometimes, but then Jeremy Citron did come with me once.
Okay. And who was that?
He's an attorney.
Okay. And did he represent you at the time?
No, he's a friend of my nephew, so he was just coming to be supportive.
Okay. And during that interview, can you tell the jurors that generally what do we talk about?
Some of the incidents that, about the shooting and about her will.
And at that time, did you agree to go on a drive with us to show us the route?
Yes, I did.
And then of course, in preparation for trial, you've been down here a couple of times.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you a question about, or some questions about what you know regarding the defendant's familiarity with guns. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jurors, you've been down to the ranch, you say hundreds of times. Can you tell the jurors, while down there at the ranch, did you ever have the opportunity to see the defendant handle and operate guns?
Often.
Often. And to you, what does often mean?
A lot.
If you had to put a number on it.
Maybe 100 times. We didn't shoot every time we went down there, but it was probably like maybe every other time.
Okay. And when you would shoot down at the ranch, where did you shoot?
Out in the woods, there was a range that was a big mound of dirt that we could put milk bottles or targets or something on, and the mountain of dirt stopped the bullets.
Okay. And during those occasions, you would actually, with your own two eyes, have the opportunity to see the defendant actually handle firearms.
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what you know about his attention to safety when handling guns?
He was very safety conscious. Would always tell me not to do something.
Like what? Not to do what, for instance?
Fire a gun while somebody was standing like in front of where the gun was. Like not right in front, but even if they were off to the side.
Okay.
Or making sure I didn't point it in the wrong direction.
He would tell you that?
Yes.
And did you ever see the defendant handle guns in the presence of young Austin?
Yes.
About how many times do you think you've seen that?
40, 50.
40 or 50. And can you tell the jurors whether or not, in your presence, the defendant actually would assist, train, or teach young Austin how to actually fire a gun?
Yes.
And can you tell us anything about his safety consciousness when it came to having young Austin handle guns and shoot them?
I understand the question, but let me object to the way it's framed, safety consciousness.
Just the word she used.
I'll allow it. I think we're in an area that's appropriate for you to explore.
You understand?
Yes.
Okay. Share with the jurors what you experienced or what you saw.
He was very good with training and, teaching the proper ways to handle a weapon.
And, you've actually seen young Austin fire a gun out there at the ranch?
He's a good shot.
Say it again.
He's a good shot.
And who taught him to be a good shot?
Tex.
Okay, so there's a bit of interesting discussion right there from Danny Jo Carter, particularly Tex's use of the gun. Again, I'm here with Ronn Blitzer, and Ron, I want to talk to you a little bit about the use of the gun. So the idea that he was an excellent shot, took all safety precautions, it kind of goes against the defense's theory a little bit that this man improperly fired a gun in a moving car.
Yeah, we were talking about this off camera for a bit, and I have to agree. Showing that he has extensive experience with weapons, that he knows what he's doing with a gun, would indicate that an accident like this would be unlikely. That he would be in a position where he could accidentally pull a trigger, that he would be holding a gun in his hands while he's potentially nodding off in the backseat of a car, that something like this could ever happen.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. Then again, do you think the defense, when they cross-examine Danny Joe, that would be an opportunity to say, well, maybe there are times at the ranch when Tex did misfire or Tex did do something that improperly held the gun? Because no one's perfect. No one's perfect. Things happen. And by the way, how many times did you see him fire a gun when he was inebriated? Wouldn't that be a good question to ask?
Right, absolutely. And the defense is going to try and get any information out there to show that he wasn't the expert that the prosecution might be making him out to be. So that's definitely one way that they could go. At the same time, you could have the prosecution go, unless there's a story of him shooting a gun while inebriated, and we'll see on cross if that comes out, one would think that someone who has such experience would know better than to go near a gun while they're drunk.
And I think that double action, single action mode of the gun will really come into play. Again, single action, based upon the defense's opening statement, single action is almost like a hair trigger. Double action requires 15 pounds of pressure. We're not entirely sure what mode it was in. We'll probably learn a little bit later on from those forensics. But I wonder if that becomes an avenue of questioning for Danny Joe. How many times have you seen Tex fire in a double action or single action way? And that's going to probably come up. What I want to play for you right now is one of the key parts of this crucial witness. Danny Joe testified yesterday about the gunshot that has taken this case by storm. Let's listen in.
Like it's locked, and I looked at mine and my door lock was up, so I hit the button and locked the doors, and I said, no, now they're locked. And I think that's the last thing that she said.
Before?
I heard a big boom, and I didn't know what it was. I thought there was an explosion somewhere, and my head turned to the right, and I looked out the window and wondered where there was an explosion, or if somebody behind us was getting ready to hit us, or something had happened behind us. I did not realize that it was a gunshot right away.
How did it sound?
It was loud.
And so can you tell the jurors what happened next?
Diane turned around, she turned around this way. She flung around and she says, Tex, what did you do?
Tex, what did you do?
Mm-hmm.
And did he say anything?
He said the gun discharged.
And so, what did you do when Diane McIver turned around to look?
When she turned around, I turned around and realized seconds. This was all happening in seconds. And I saw a puff of smoke, and I could see his hands. And I could see the top of the gun, I could see part of the gun, his hands, and some of the bag.
Okay.
And his hand was moving like this.
Show the jurors again what you saw.
Something like that.
All right, everybody. I think we have a live feed back in the Tex McIver courtroom. Danny Joe is back in the stand, so let's listen in.
And can you tell the jury, prior to her death, were you making the payments?
Yes,
How were you making the payments?
an automatic draft.
And what does that mean?
Means it automatically comes out of your bank account on a certain day and gets mailed directly to her office.
And can you tell the jurors, after her death, were you still able to have the payments come out automatically?
They still did come out automatically.
Okay. And then what happened?
They were sent back to me because the accounts were locked.
Her accounts were locked.
Yes,
And so you start receiving the payments back.
correct.
And so is there a portion of that loan that is still outstanding?
Yes, yes, it is.
Do you have any idea about how much?
2,000.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jurors, was there ever any communication between yourself and the defendant after the death of Diane with respect to that car loan?
Yes.
And can you tell the jurors what happened?
One day I got a note that I needed to send Terry Brown a check. That was Diane's administrative assistant. And I called him after that.
And what'd you say to him?
I told him that I didn't have any intention of not paying that loan because it was actually loaned to me out of a specific account.
Okay. And what did he say back to you?
Are we talking about Terry Brown talking with you or Mr. McIver talking with you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. McIver.
I'm sorry. I didn't make that clear. But yes, you were speaking to Mr. McIver then, right?
Right.
Okay. And then when you told him you had every intention of making good on the loan, what did he say back to you? If you remember.
He said that he was going to ease up on it and for me not to worry about it.
Okay. So let me show you an exhibit. I've already shown it to defense counsel. It states exhibit number 323, and there's a 323A. Any objection?
Yeah, I gotta have an objection to this entire line now. It's 401. What's the relevance?
Well, I don't want to state it in front of the jurors, but I have told Mr. Harvey.
No, I don't know what 323? That can't be the right number.
Hold on, Judge.
I don't mean to tell you your own numbers, but 323 ought to be something a little different.
It's 317.
317.
317.
Okay,
Item 317A.
got it. So the line of questioning I find is relevant. I don't know what 317 is. If it pertains to the line of questioning, then Mr. Harvey may say, hey, I've got the 401 objection, I understand your ruling. He may have different objections as to 317 in particular. I haven't seen.
I know I have.
All right, let's talk a little bit about what's going on with Danny Jo Carter's testimony. Again, I'm here with senior legal editor of Law&Crime.com, Ronn Blitzer. Ron, you're listening to this testimony. The idea of a loan, we keep hearing that Diane made a loan to Danny Jo. We saw that Diane made a loan yesterday to Alan Craig Stringer, and we know that she made a loan to Tex. How important is this testimony in the overall context of this murder case?
Right now, I'm honestly not sure. I'm waiting to see where the prosecution goes with this. We know that one of their big theories in this case is that money was at the heart of this, that Tex McIver intentionally killed his wife over money. So, we'll see where they're going with this, dealing with all these financial matters.
All right, let's listen in. We have a live feed.
State's exhibit number 64.
Yes.
You see it?
Yes.
The container that is in that photograph, have you ever seen inside of that container?
No.
Okay.
You know, container sort of a vague word.
Yeah.
Maybe you can point to it with Mr. Harvey up there if he wants to see it. Okay.
Yes, that right there. Have you ever seen inside that before?
No.
You haven't?
I don't think, no.
Okay. How about, have you ever seen the inside of this before? This is State 66, Mr. Harvey.
No.
No. Okay. So I'm going to remove these two photographs then from your pile of photos, okay? So take a look at each one of these and tell any objection to the rest?
I guess maybe at this particular time, just as long as you get a generic.
Sure. Just take a look at each one of the other photos.
Okay.
Now, can you say to the judge and to the jurors that each one of those photos are photos that you've actually seen with your own two eyes? That's a bad question. Do you recognize what's in the photo?
Do I recognize what's in the photos?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. And do you recognize, well, strike that. How do you recognize what's in the photos?
Because I've seen them before. I mean, I know what these are, but I've seen this. This is...
Okay. And the photograph that's marked as State's Exhibit number 55, you actually have seen that before?
Yes.
Okay. And State 67, have you seen that before?
Not specifically, no. I mean, I know those are,
Don't tell me what it is.
Okay.
You've not specifically seen that before?
no.
Okay. We don't want to show that. How about State 60?
I've seen that.
If you haven't, you haven't.
Well, I don't know if it was those specific ones.
Okay. Now I'm going to take that one out.
Okay.
That was 60?
60.
Okay.
How about 59?
No.
Okay. 58?
Again, I've seen this. I wouldn't have been able to tell you what that was.
Okay. Then out of caution, I'm going to take that one out too.
Okay.
How about 57?
It's kind of the same.
Same thing? No? Okay. And 68?
Same thing.
Same thing. That's all right. So really, States 55 is the only one that you can recognize and identify, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And does it fairly and accurately show what you've seen before that's in that photograph?
Yes.
Okay. This time, then, Judge, I would tender States 55 only.
No objection. Okay, that's admitted.
And can you tell the jurors, what are we looking at in States Exhibit 55?
It's a little closet that's off the side of the garage with a gun safe and a cabinet with ammunition.
Okay. And if you would touch the screen and show the jurors, where is the safe?
Right here.
Put a little circle so we can really see it good. Okay. And where's the ammunition?
Right here.
This is State's Exhibit number 263. Who's that good-looking guy right there?
That's my husband.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, near the time of this incident, is that the way his hair looked?
Yes.
It's different today, though, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I'm going to tender some other photographs. State's Exhibit 370.
370.
Sorry.
All right, 370, I found that.
371.
Okay.
372. All the way sequentially down to 380.
Okay. All photographs?
Correct.
Okay.
Understanding there's no objection, I would just ask to publish them.
No objection, Mr. Harvey, to the admission of 370 through 380. They're all admitted.
We're showing the jury State's Exhibit number 370. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
And what is this?
Diane's office.
Is this the office where you were with her on Friday, September 23rd, before you left to go down to the ranch?
Yes.
This is State's Exhibit 372. You recognize the person depicted in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
Who was that?
Billy Corey.
That's Billy Corey. 372. This is 373. Who was that?
Jay Grover.
Mr. Corey's right-hand man,
Yes.
as you described it. This is 374.
That's Ken Rickert.
Ken Rickard?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Works at Corey?
Yes.
Now, you talked about a housekeeper. What's her name?
Phyllis Gable.
This is States 379. You recognize her?
Yes.
Who was that?
Phyllis Gable.
You also talked about Jenny Calhoun and her husband Les, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
This is 375. It's kind of dark. Can you make out who the people are?
It's Janie and Les.
Can you tell the jurors who is Rachel Stiles?
Rachel has been.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Danny Joe Carter is still on the stand. I'm here with Ronn Blitzer. Ron, a witness has to authenticate these images, right? What's going on for our viewers? Explain what's happening right here.
So if you're introducing evidence and you are asking the witness to talk about it and it's something that the witness is familiar with, you need to make sure, you need to show and prove to the court that it is what you're saying it is. So you need to ask the witness, is this the same thing that we were talking about? Is this the actual person? Is this the picture?
Right. And there's a lot of different people in this case, including Billy Corey, who owned the company that Diane and other employees have worked at. So it's interesting to hear. She has been on the stand now for 2 days. Her first day testimony was really interesting about the shooting. Now it's getting into more of the background about Tex. What is going to happen on cross-examination?
You know, it could be any number of things at this point. We're going through a lot of information. The prosecution's been kind of all over the place. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the cross-examination addresses that, if they're going to go point by point or go more in a sensible order.
Well, we'll have to listen. Let's listen back live into the courtroom.
This is State's Exhibit number 371. Can you tell the jurors if you recognize this person?
It's Bill Crane.
It's Bill Crane. Can you tell the jurors if you know what kind of work does Bill Crane do?
He is a political analyst and does PR.
And by PR, you mean what?
Public relations for different people.
And who was giving the defendant a massage when you saw him there in the master bedroom?
Annie.
Annie. This is State's Exhibit 376. You recognize that person?
Yes.
Who is that?
That's Annie.
And Austin's mother. What's her name?
Ann Schwal. Or
what was it at the time?
Schwal.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors if you know what was the relationship between the Schwals and the McIvers, specifically Diane? If you know.
It was a good. They were good friends.
Okay. This is State's Exhibit number 380.
That's Ann.
That's Ann Schwal.
Yes.
I'm almost done. I just have one other area I want to speak to you about, and that is I want to talk to you about an incident, and I'll direct your attention to sometime in the summer of 2016, okay?
Okay.
Just that time frame. And I'm going to ask you if you recall, when did you come down this past weekend to speak with me in preparation for your testimony here this week?
Saturday.
Okay. Is that the only day you came down?
No, I came down Sunday also.
Okay. When you came down on Saturday, were you alone or with other people?
I was alone.
Okay, how about Sunday?
I was with my husband.
Okay. And on Saturday, you were actually in this room.
Yes.
Okay. On Sunday, when you came down with your husband, were you guys separated?
Yes.
And what floor were you on?
I was up at outside Chief Wacocha's office.
Okay.
I'm not sure what floor that's on.
Okay. And you don't know where your husband was?
No.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, on that Sunday, did you have an opportunity to speak to Mr. Abadi?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors at that time, did you share an incident that you had witnessed at the ranch sometime in the summer of 2016 that took place between the defendant and his wife?
About the Austin's burned finger?
Yes, yes. Austin burned his finger during that.
All right, as they are working on the next line of questioning, we're talking about the cross-examination of Danny Jo Carter. I wonder where they're going to pick up when they talk about the actual shooting and what she did witness in the car. What do you think, Ron?
They're going to talk about the immediate aftermath to the shooting, I think. Yeah, we're going to talk about the instructions to drive to the hospital where Tex had apparently told her not to go too fast, which seemed a little weird, even though she was being very careful to not hit anyone or do any damage while she was trying to get to the hospital as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think they might be going to a break right now, so let's talk a little bit more about this case and what we can expect. The financial motive, from a perspective of strategy, so the state has gone with motive first, trying to prove that, and then we'll eventually go into the forensics of this case, going into the actual shooting in the car. I'm sure you'll have a battle of the experts, the forensic experts, about how the gun could have gone off. Now, we know that, we'll talk about that in a minute, but I'm curious from your perspective, going with motive first and then trying to show what happened in the car, what do you think of that strategy?
It's a strategy. It's probably not the one that I would have gone with.
You would have started with what happened in the car first, right?
You set the scene. I think they took a long time to actually get to the interesting part of the testimony, although that could have been part of their strategy. They could have figured that the jury's going to be waiting to get there, so they'll hold their attention by kind of leading up to it and trying to set the stage as far as the background before getting to it. That's something that is not at all uncommon. But if it were me, I would probably try and get to the facts of the actual shooting in that day as soon as possible, and then go into possible motives.
Because one of the great things about this case is you can look at it both ways. Either he was covering up something, or he was covering up a murder, or he was covering up an accident. You can look at both ways, but really it does matter, was his shooting intentional? And when we get into the car, it should be noted that the gun was in the plastic bag. And I want to talk about that plastic bag. When I first heard it, I said, what's the big deal? You have a gun in the plastic bag. The prosecution tried to make it seem like it would contain the gunshot residue. But we all know he's the shooter, so how much does that matter? Then again, the flip side of it is, couldn't you argue, that he didn't know maybe that he was going to shoot her at that moment, and keeping the gun in the plastic bag is suspicious in and of itself. How should we think about that plastic bag?
For me personally, if I'm the defense, I'm looking at it and saying, well, keeping it in the plastic bag shows that he wasn't planning on using it right away, that he was holding it.
But Danny Jo said she never saw him have it in a plastic bag before.
Yeah. So, there are some inconsistencies here, but, when you're, working for the defense, you're going to try and push whatever works in your favor. And, they're in this neighborhood that Danny Jo admitted she was not familiar with. They were, they had just been in traffic. Now they're in this unfamiliar area. There were some people hanging out on the sidewalk that may have looked suspicious to Tex.
And she testified to that. That backs up the defense's theory.
Yeah. So, if he's claiming that he just had it for protection, then, keeping it in the plastic bag where it had been would support that. So
right, okay, I could see that, but let me ask you this, and this is the million-dollar question, and the thing that I don't quite understand. For any defenders of Tex McIver out there, if you're driving to the hospital and your wife you just shot your wife, I'd imagine you'd be in a bit of a panic. He seemed to be a bit more calm, but you're going to tell the driver of the car, oh, watch out, there might be people with babies, strollers on the middle of the road, drive carefully. That doesn't mesh well. What do you think about that?
It doesn't, but that goes into something that we talk about a lot in these situations where you have the death of a loved one and how someone reacts in that immediate aftermath. We don't know what his exact state of mind was. He had just shot his wife, for sake of argument. If it was an accident, he's probably freaking out and trying to get things under control in his own mind to try and get his wife proper medical care. So he's probably thinking, okay, let's get there as quickly as we can, but we don't want to cause any more damage and make the situation any worse. He's probably also just talking just to keep his mind on the task at hand, potentially.
Yeah. All right, we might have some audio back in the courtroom. Let's listen in.
The state is about to go into that was also related to the state this weekend, but we did not get a memorandum or interview or notes or anything of that sort with regard to the incident that is now being inquired about.
So I'm clear. I think I understand what you're saying. Something about Austin Schwall burning his finger. Nothing about that in the interview notes you received.
Correct.
So you did get a heads up. Here are some more recent interview notes, but they were missing what we're about to hear about it.
And as I understand it from the state, there were two separate, notes. One sheet about the interview on Saturday, and apparently there was another one with regard to this incident in the summer of 2016, which we did not, in fact, get. So I'm going to object to them going into this, having not gotten anything or ever heard about it in the last year and a half.
Okay. And you're going to check, it sounds like, Mr. Rucker, about whether, in fact, something was transmitted, and we'll work through that. Okay.
To be correctly related, there was two separate, one from Saturday, one from Sunday, and the expectation on my part is that Sunday was sent. I'm just checking to make sure that we didn't, and if we didn't, I'll steer clear.
Okay. Sounds like everyone understands the guidelines. I'll be back in a few minutes, and we'll figure that one out. Thank you.
So what we believe was a conversation between the attorneys and the judge in the Tex McIver case about what cross-examination will entail. Well, the scope of that, you heard Bruce Harvey. He's known for his trademark ponytail. Ron, I think you might look good with that, but that's just me just saying that.
Well, you got to look at old high school photos of mine to be sure. Just kidding.
What's interesting is you see it and you don't expect it, and then it just comes out in the back. But I would be disappointed if he did the cross-examination as opposed to Don Samuel, who's been a bulldog in this case when you see him under cross-examination. In fact, when he was cross-examining Alan Craig Stringer yesterday, that was not a good situation. Alan was not having a good time on the stand. People kind of feel him to be a bit abrasive, a bit rude, but he really is honing in on his points under cross-examination and really biting into the credibility of many of these witnesses.
It was very effective. I'm looking forward to seeing what we'll get from the other attorney here, Braden All.
Braden All. Well, let's tell you what. In case you missed it in this Tex McIver case, when Danny Jo was on the stand yesterday, that was a crucial day talking about the shooting. We want to play you right now some more of her testimony about what happened after Tex shot Diane. Take a look.
Very
When she
straight.
sat straight up, what happened?
She just sat there for a second, and I was still waiting for the light to change.
Did Mr. McIver say anything during that time?
No.
So what happened next after Diane McIver sat straight up?
I could see out of the side of my eye, the way I can see her sitting here, and she leaned forward and started doing like this and kind of lean, yeah, like that.
Okay. And what happened next?
What she said? She said, "Tex, you shot me."
You heard her say that?
I heard her say that.
Did you say anything?
No,
Did he say anything?
no.
What happened next?
Well, for a little bit, a second, less than a second, I thought it was a joke. And then I realized it wasn't. And then I knew that I had to get to the nearest emergency room.
What made you realize it wasn't a joke?
I'm not sure. I mean, I just knew that she was really, I'm not sure. I just knew it wasn't a joke.
Okay. So what happened next?
I started blinking my lights and honking my horn to see if I could get the guy that was in front of me to move. And looking for the emergency blinkers, and I asked Tex where the closest emergency room was.
Now, did you know where the closest emergency room was?
Not like that. No, no.
Did you have any thoughts about what emergency room you wanted to go to?
Hello.
Did you have any thoughts about what emergency room you wanted to go to?
Piedmont Hospital was the only hospital that I was sitting on Piedmont Road.
I understand.
Piedmont Hospital is not on Piedmont Road.
And as you were sitting on Piedmont Road, understanding that Piedmont Hospital isn't on Piedmont Road, did you know how to get there from where you were?
No.
Did you express that thought to the defendant?
No, I just asked him where the closest emergency room was.
And what did he say?
He said, Emory, we should go to Emory. And I said, you're going to have to tell me how to go, which way to get there, because I don't know.
Now, how would you describe kind of your state of mind at that time?
I wanted to panic, but I knew that I couldn't.
And so, did you look over at Diane McIver? Did you say anything to her? Did you attempt to assist her? Anything like that?
Yes, I looked over at her and called her name. I called Diane.
You actually looked at her?
Yes.
And what does she look like?
She was breathing really. She was breathing really hard, and kind of like panicky.
Okay. And did you say anything to her?
I called her name, and just that a couple of times, and then I realized that if I was going to drive, I couldn't drive and look at her.
Okay. Can you tell the jurors, what did the defendant say? What did he do?
He leaned forward and was holding her head with both hands and was saying, Diane, Diane.
And can you tell the jurors, did you call 911?
No, I did not.
And can you explain to the jurors why not?
Well, the thought crossed through my mind, and I...
Let me again object to the thought crossed through my mind.
So the question, if you'll repeat your question.
Again,
It's okay.
Why didn't you call 911?
My phone was in the back seat because I really hadn't been able to use it all weekend.
So where was it in the back seat?
In my purse.
Why didn't you use Diane McIver's phone? Did she have a phone?
Yes, I didn't know where it was, and at that time I was driving, and even if it was down here in the console, I couldn't look down to get it.
Can you tell the jurors, did you know whether or not the defendant had a phone?
Well, I knew he had a phone, yes.
Where was it?
It was in the backseat with him.
That's Danny Jo Carter explaining the moments after Diane McIver was shot in the car that she was driving, shot by her husband, Tex McIver. That's what we're covering here, the Tex McIver murder case. It is a case that is still underway. Danny Jo Carter is still on the stand. We're waiting for her to be cross-examined, but we have a lot to discuss about this case. That's a live feed into the courtroom. As soon as it starts up again, we'll make sure to go to it. Again, I want to talk to Ron here. Ron, the thing about this case that's also interesting is what happened after the shooting. That's a real big issue. What did you make of the fact that they went to Emory Hospital as opposed to going to Grady or AMC? That's a big point that the prosecution wants to make, that Tex McIver told Danny Jo to go to Emory as opposed to a different hospital.
It is questionable. We were talking before about how Tex was telling Danny Jo to be careful while driving, while she was trying to get to where they were going as quickly as possible. And then you have the issue of going to Emory instead of Grady, which was a known trauma center in the area. They had advertised all over the place.
And Emory's not.
And Emory was not. And then there was also Piedmont Hospital that Danny Jo mentioned because she thought at the time that they were in the area, but then decided not to go that way because she wasn't familiar with the roads.
But so a guy shoots his wife and then says, you know what? Let's not go to the hospital that can treat her. Let's go to a different hospital. He is formulating that possibility. Let's go to Emory Hospital where I know they won't be able to treat her for a gunshot wound. What about that doesn't make sense to me? I don't know if it makes sense to the jurors.
No, if you're pushing the fact that, or at least the notion that he knew that Emory wasn't going to be as effective as Grady, then that certainly goes against him. At the same time,
why she didn't know where she was going. Danny Jo didn't know where the hospital was, so just give her the wrong directions if you really want your wife to die. Be like, oh, make a left when it's really a right. You're gonna, what am I not getting here? He took her to a hospital.
Yeah, so that's what the defense is going to say. Emory is a renowned hospital. He wanted his wife to get the best care. He's not familiar with gunshot wounds, so he didn't know that Grady might have been the better choice. So if you're the defense, you're going to say he just wanted her to get to a hospital. He knew where Emory was. That's where they were going to go. And then the prosecution's going to say, well, no, he was trying to go out of the way to a place that wasn't as good. If he really wanted his wife to get care, he would have gone to the trauma center.
The jurors are paying attention to every detail of the shooting and what happened after the shooting. Do you think the fact that Tex McIver was holding Diane's head and kept saying, Diane, 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 he might have been calm, but that appears to be someone who made a mistake and who was grieving and who was trying to take control of his wife and trying to be there for her and be supportive. I don't see a cold-blooded killer, but you tell me, what did you make of that statement that Danny Jo made?
Yeah, she talked about how, at first Diane was coherent. She was talking, didn't even seem like she was injured. And then as she was getting worse, Tex was trying to at least take care of her and keep her in place.
All right, Ron, let's listen in. We want to hear Bruce Harvey speaking with the judge.
Or buzzards.
That speculation, I think, is still an inappropriate basis upon which to admit this evidence at this time.
So why don't we do this, Mr. Rucker? I think it's cleaner if you just move to your final section.
Okay.
All right. That'll just be the path of least resistance. Let's please bring Ms. Carter in.
Talking about the scope of cross-examination, Danny Jo Carter is coming back on the stand. We're excited to hear what will happen under cross-examination. The defense has been doing a very solid job so far of explaining how this might not be a murder, but an accident. But the real crucial testimony, we're all waiting for it, is when we get those forensic experts about the gun in the car. How was it positioned? What was the trajectory of the bullet? We know that the gun was in the plastic bag when it was attempted to be fired, and it might have been he was taking the gun out. It might have been shot through the bag. These are questions that will be answered. And then we cannot forget, what mode was the gun set? Was it single action, hair trigger, Or was it double action, where you needed, I think, 12 pounds of pressure? You needed a full force of the gun, a pull of the trigger. That becomes the question when we try to determine, was this an intentional murder or was this an accident? That becomes the question. Ron, we're about to hear cross-examination. Final words as before she gets on the stand?
I'm looking forward to seeing how she handles the cross-examination, and I'm looking to see how this attorney compares to the other defense attorney's style.
Let's hear. Let's listen in.
We'll transition to the. You guys have 3 writing implements? You're good? Okay. Then we'll transition to cross-examination. We'll probably break for lunch around 12:30ish. I don't have any meetings today, so there's not a hard stop for lunch. We'll get to a natural break point. We'll break for lunch. Mr. Rucker.
And given that, Judge, at this time, I think that's all my questions for Ms. Carter.
Okay.
I'll turn it over to the defense.
Well, there you go. Mr. Martin, if you have any questions, now's the time.